All right. Let's start this recording by saying how unrealistic Justin Gilchrist is being right now. Then again, I am kind of used to it because this morning my son complained because I asked him to brush his teeth. P.S. I ask him to brush his teeth every morning. Okay, sometimes not on the weekends, I'll admit that to you guys. But school days, yes. I'm like, gotta brush your teeth. He's like, again? And I'm like, again. And he's like, I just did it like this. I did it like yesterday. And I was like, yeah, every day is when we brush our teeth. And I put the toothpaste on his toothbrush for him and got it wet like a good mom. And then I hold it out to him and then he goes, can you just do it? And does this. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna brush your teeth for you. You can do it. And he goes, aw. And I was like, what? And he goes, but you put it on there. And I'm like, here, I thought I was being nice for 1 second. And he's just like, nope, absolutely not. Can you just brush my teeth for me? Can you chew my food for me, please? Just put it in my mouth. It'll be fine. Okay. So today we're talking about probability distributions, which is, this is another chapter on probability. These are about specific kinds of distributions you're going to deal with. Probability distributions are just writing down all the possibilities and what the probability of every possibility is. So there are two kinds of probabilities. One is called discrete and one is called continuous. Discrete has a finite or countable number of outcomes. Today is 2/12. And continuous has a infinite or uncountable number of outcomes. Okay, so you have to think about what is countable and what is uncountable. For example, let's look at example 1. X represents the number of Fortune 500 companies that lost money in the previous year. If I gave you enough time, could you list all the companies that lost money the previous year out of the Fortune 500? Yes, this is discrete, this is countable. This one is continuous, this one's uncountable. Can anybody tell me why listing all of the volumes that are possible to be in a tank of gas is uncountable?
Because decimals are infinite.
Right, decimals are infinite. So I could say it's 3 gallons, or I could say it's 3.1 gallons, or I could say it's 3.01, or 3.001, or 3.00000000001, which is different from 3.000000002. Okay, so there's an infinite amount of choices because there's decimals. It's not like I can say here, with the number of Fortune 500 companies, I can't say 2.5 companies lost. 1 company, 2 companies, 3 companies, only whole numbers are allowed. And don't get me wrong, it's not just whole numbers. Like if we were talking about like shoe sizes, those are also finite, even though they have half sizes, because you can't have a shoe size that's a 12.95. But you could have a 12.5. So it's not like decimals aren't allowed, it's just only if there's accountable ones. Don't make that face at me, Nathan. They don't make those. Okay. Unless you're Shaq, and yes, then you can get some Shaq shoes. Okay. So, with your partner, grab your partner, and with your partner, figure out example 2A and 2B.
I was on.
You can join us. Speed of rocket. Yes, you can. can't have a half cast. You can't have two cats. Unless you kill the half cast. Like a
Can you though?
Okay.
I mean,
that would be mean, wouldn't it?
we've had a calf born without a jaw.
Really?
Mhm.
Do you have to put it down?
No, we tried to make it live for a bit, but it's just really not. It's really interesting. Like it really
Let it live.
malformed and stuff.
Just the jaw?
Well, like its ears were like miniature,
Oh.
but like yeah, they're not
Was it a twin or just by itself?
by itself.
Interesting. Okay, I heard you guys talk. Did you guys get continuous for this one?
Yes.
And discrete for this one? Okay. And I mean, as long as we're having a great time and talking about half calves and, you know, what if the calf was born without any feet? Okay, well then what kind of calf is that? It's still one calf, okay? It's still one calf. Just because you don't have all of your body parts doesn't mean you're less of a thing. Okay? It's not how that works.
100%.
If you're in an accident and you lose an arm, you're not part of a person. You're still a person, just so we're clear. Okay, a discrete probability is only with discrete probabilities. It is all the choices and their probabilities. Obviously, we can only do this with a discrete probability distribution because it's the only one that we can make a list of. Like, we couldn't even list the amount of gallons that's between 1 and 2 gallons. You would die making that list because it's infinite. There's an infinite amount of numbers between 1 and 2. And if you really think about it, what are the chances that somebody has exactly 1 gallon of gas in their tank? I mean, exactly. Not even a tiny bit more, not even a tiny bit less. What are the chances?
Basically zero.
Basically 0, right? I mean, sure, maybe somebody somewhere has one, but basically 0. In fact, all the things are basically 0, but then if you add them up together, they're 100%. Like, that is something that we usually use normal distributions for, bell curves, that kind of thing, which is next chapter. But for this chapter, it's countable things that are easy to figure out. All right, so here are the rules to check and see if it's probability distribution. All probabilities are between 1 and 0. And they add up to 1. The sum of all the probabilities adds up to 1. All right, I definitely didn't put the trials on here, and I should have, so my apologies. All right, an industrial psychologist administered a personality inventory test for passive-aggressive traits. For 150 employees, each individual is given a score from 1 to 5, where 1 is extremely passive and 5 is extremely aggressive. I'm curious, where would you rate yourself from extremely passive to extremely aggressive? By aggressive, I don't mean throwing punches. Do you know what I mean when I say aggressive? Like, let's say that something, like a mistake was made with your order at a store. You the type of person who's going to go back and get that fixed and make sure that they get the right thing and stand up for yourself? Or are you passive? Now, passive is not hiding from problems, but it's often, have you ever heard of passive aggressive? That's when people, like, passively are aggressive. A lot of mother-in-laws do this, where they're just like, oh, I just love how you don't care how your kitchen looks. Passive-aggressive. You see what I mean? So passive is being like, definitely, I will not get into any conflict, no matter what, even if I know I'm right, even if it's not a fight, in any way. And aggressive is not necessarily physical fighting, but it is definitely standing up for yourself every single time. So where are you at? Between a 1 and a 5, would you say? Kind of depends on who you're with, doesn't it?
So I would say 3, but that indicates neither.
They're just right in the center.
Yeah, I'm definitely
Not overly passive, not overly aggressive.